With all the teams having revealed their 2023 cars or having launched their 2023 challenges, it's time for the teams to take the next big step, which is testing. Testing is a very important facet in Formula One, as all these teams will try to find out whether what they had in the simulator or whether all the development what they did during the winter can be replicated by the car on track. So it will be a very busy 3 days starting from Thursday, the 23rd. That will be the Thursday, Friday and Saturday. Each day will be 8.5 hours of running. They changed that from last season, which was 8 hours. So the extra 30 minutes will be allocated for the end of each afternoon session, because they want the teams to try out the track when it's more representative of the track conditions during qualifying or during the race time. So that will be an interesting 30 minutes, because the teams can use that 30 minutes to do some qualifying runs or some race runs. So I think it will be a very representative 30 minutes at the end of every afternoon. So what can we look out for? What can we expect during these 3 days of testing, which is not a very large amount of time? Initially, from the previous years, they used to have a bit more time during testing. So this schedule is congested. The teams have to make sure they have their programs in place so that they can go out there and just do their programs as quick as they can, as good as they can, so they can get all this data and see where they need to improve, see whether there are any issues which might arise with the cars. So each day will be 8.5 hours, as I've said, divided into the morning session and the afternoon session. So different teams might opt to do one driver for the morning session and another driver for the afternoon session, or others might opt for one driver to do the entire day. That's the 8.5 hours, of course, with a lunch break in the middle. So what can we look out for? One of the things which we will all see on the cars are these metallic grills, which are called aero rigs. They are used to measure the airflow so that the engineers or the race people can come up with a 3D model of how the air is flowing around the car, underneath the car, over the car, around the car. We're also going to see a lot of green paint on the cars. That's not someone who has spilled paint. That's an aerodynamic test as well, where the green paint is used to show how the air is flowing around the car. Mostly you'll see it on the back wing or on the front wing or on the side floor of the car. We are also going to see new parts. Probably what the teams launched for their reveal car is not what might be on the track come testing. Some teams might bring new parts so they can test them. Already you've seen Ferrari with that front wing with those wings, which were illegal last season, but Mercedes did that as well. But as long as they're not giving a car any aerodynamic advantage, they are legal this season. So we might see a lot of new parts here and there. We might also see sandbagging, which is a common term which has been used for the previous years. And sandbagging is when a team runs their car on a reduced engine mode or on not maximum engine mode, so they can hide a bit of pace, so they cannot give away their true strength. Mercedes have been well known for this over the past few years, where they just hide a few more, they hide some more juice, and then they reveal it come the first race, and everybody wonders where was that in testing. It will also be important for new drivers to adjust to their new teams, the rookies as well to adjust to their new cars. So let's look out for that. In terms of the teams, different teams will run their own programs. They will test different facets depending on the weaknesses the car had last season. For instance, we have Mercedes. Let's look at what they could be doing come testing. As you can remember, last season, guys, Mercedes struggled with with a lot of porpoising, which is the airflow underneath the floor and around the car. And they've stacked their guns with that zero side port design, which tells me they do not think that the structure of the car is an issue. They may be basing the issue with the porpoising or the airflow of the car. So it will be interesting to see whether the car will be porpoising, although I don't think so, because they solved that very well towards the end of last season, and they were able to get a few good results towards the end. So I think they want to move with that direction with that car and make it more stable when it comes to airflow. So a lot of people will be keen to see whether Mercedes will have a good testing, because I remember last season that they struggled with testing. They were not quick. The car was not easy to drive. We had a few complaints from Hamilton in testing. So this season it will be interesting to see what Mercedes will focus on. And then we have cars which had a lot of issues with the power units, like the Ferrari and the Alpine. The Ferrari engine, apparently they were using it on a reduced mode last season because they couldn't go full out on it, as apparently it could have just gone kapoof. So the noise from Ferrari is that they have fixed up some of the reliability issues, which will be interesting to see whether the car will be in terms of speed, in terms of horsepower. It will be interesting to see whether the Ferrari have fixed some of those issues, as it was an issue holding them back, especially when it came to races on Sunday. They had a quick car during qualifying. That was evident by Charles Leclerc pole positions. So come testing, I think they want to see whether that engine, whether that power unit is reliable enough, as well as the Alpine. The Renault power engine power unit was a very constant thorn for them. Kept failing, kept just going kaput for them during races, and that really made them struggle to finish well clear of their rivals in the midfield battle. So the Renault and the Ferrari power units will be something to look out for during testing. Other things we can look out for is the Aston Martin. Aston Martin admittedly last season thought they had a structural flaw of the car, and that made them to radically redesign it middle to the season, and they went with the Red Bull design. I remember Christian Horner also said that it was just a copycat of what Red Bull had done. So will Aston Martin, starting with testing, be confident enough that the structure they have in place will be enough for them to develop that car even towards the end of last season, instead of changing the redesign completely. Cars like which had drivability issues, like McLaren had a lot of drivability issues. We had Lando Norris, who did well to adjust his driving style to suit the car, complained a lot about corners and exits. I remember Daniel Ricciardo had someone who is really good in late braking, did have the confidence to do that at all, and he had a very poor season. So cars like McLaren, who I think know they're starting on the back foot, will have their own program to see whether the car is now a bit more drivable. Cars which struggle with a lot of drag, like Williams and Haas, will be looking to see whether they have the right balance between downforce and drag, because it's something which you can lose very easily when you concentrate on one and ignore the other facet of the car. So a bit more downforce maybe hurt the Williams last season, because you could see how they kept spinning around, and it was not a good balance for the Williams and Haas. Other cars like the Alfa Romeo as well will be the drivability issue, and I feel like the car they had with them really did not give them a lot of room for upgrades. So the DNA they've stuck with this season, can it be tested well to facilitate more upgrades going into the future races. All in all, it will be an interesting session. 3 days, a lot of mileage running, a lot of data collected, and a lot of learning to do for all these cars. And as we saw from last season, I think the team which has good testing usually will have a good race or a good season, a good first race or a good season in general. I remember Red Bull were good in testing, Ferrari were quick in testing, Mercedes were poor in testing last season, McLaren were poor in testing last season, and it ended up looking like that for the rest of the season. So testing is a very important subject for preparation. So let's see what different teams will have to offer in testing, and then we can get our hands now really excited coming that first race in Bahrain, which is just like 2 weeks from now on the 5th of March. Let's go, come on.